Okay, this video is hopefully going to teach you how to factorise a harder quadratic. A hard quadratic is where the coefficient or the number in front of the x squared isn't 1. So it makes it a bit trickier to factorise, but there is a reasonably straightforward method that I will show you, and if you use this method every time then you shouldn't have any problems at all. First example. Okay, 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. It's a quadratic because the highest power is 2. But this time there isn't just one x squared, there's 2 of them. So we need to adapt our method slightly. We're still going to be looking for 2 numbers. As before, we're looking for 2 numbers that add to make the coefficient of the middle part of the quadratic equation. So we're adding to make 5. But this time we're not finding a number to multiply to make the coefficient on the end. We're going to look for 2 numbers that multiply to make this coefficient multiplied by this one. So 2 times 2, so timesing to make 4. Okay. So 2 numbers that multiply to make 4 but add to make 5. These are 4 and 1. Now the method of factorising is a little bit trickier than before. We can't just pop these into brackets and be done. We need to use the grid method, but we're going to use it in reverse. So our answer, really, our quadratic, is 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. So we're going to pop some of these parts into the grid. So 2x squared will go in the top left of the grid and 2 will go in the bottom right. The 2 numbers that we've found that multiply to make 4 but add to make 5 are 4 and 1. They will go into the grid as our x values here. Doesn't matter which way round we put them. We could have the 4x there and the x there. The 4x there and the x there is just the way I've done it. So if we were to add all these parts up at the end, like we would when we do the grid method, you add up the bits at the end in the grid, we'd get 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. To get the factorised form, we need to reverse the grid method and work out what's going to be in these outside bits of the box. So 2x squared is made by multiplying 2x and an x. We need to work out whether the 2x is going to go here or here. Well, if the 2x goes here, nothing can multiply with it to make a normal x. So the 2x is going to have to go here because then it will multiply to make 4x. So 2x there, x there. 2x times x, 2x squared. 2x times 2 will give me 4x. X times 1 will give me x. And double check that you've filled it in right because 1 times 2 should make 2. So that's the only way that we can put things around the outside that will make these parts being in the middle of the grid. So 2x times x is 2x squared, 2 times 2x is 4x, 1 times x is x, and 1 times 2 is 2. These are our brackets. So the factorised form of this equation here is this. Let's try another example. 6x squared plus 17x plus 12. We need to factorise it, so we're going to look for 2 numbers. The 2 numbers are going to add to make the middle coefficients. They've got to add to make 17. They're going to multiply, not to make 12, but to make 6 times 12, which is 72. Now this is going to be a little bit of a hunt. We need to find out the factors of 72 to work out which ones are going to add to make 17. So it might help you to start by writing a factor v in order to make sure you don't miss out any factors, which just means it'll take you longer to find the right pair. So 1 times 72, 72. They don't add to make 17, so not much use. 2 and 36 next. Again, too far apart. 3 and 24, well, they add to make 27, so we're getting a bit closer. 4 and 18, 22. 6 and 12, 18, so we're getting really close. 8 and 9, the final pair of numbers that multiply to make 72. These are the ones we want to use because they add to make 17 and times to make 72. Okay, back to the grid method then. So, always the x squared bit goes in the top left. The number without any x's involved always goes on the bottom right. We know we're using 8 and 9. These are our x's. So they go into the diagonals of the grid. Okay, now we've got to piece together what goes around the outside, and there'll only be one combination that will work. 6x squared. Well, that's made up of either 6x times by x or 2x times by 3x. We don't know which one to use. Having a look at the grid, if it's 6x and x, if I put 6x here, 6 doesn't go into 8, so that wouldn't work. If I put 6x here, 6 doesn't go into 9, so it wouldn't work. So we can scrap 6x and x being the right combination. So let's try 3x and 2x. If I put 3x in here, 3 doesn't go exactly into 8, so that wouldn't work. But if I put the 3x here, it does go into 9, so that would work. And 2x here, 2 does go into 8, so that would work. So we've started off with the right combination, 2x and 3x. 2x times 4 gives me 8x. 3x times 3 gives me 9x. Double check that it's right by saying 3 times 4, does that give me 12? Yes, it does. So it looks like this works. These parts here then are our brackets for the factorised form. And you can always double check by multiplying it back out, either using the grid method or by FOIL, to make sure that you get this answer back out again. Okay, so that's 2 examples. Let's just try one more, and this time we're going to solve as well as factorise. So, example number 3. 4x squared plus 3x minus 7 equals 0. This time we've got the equals 0, which means we're looking for 2 solutions. Exactly the same method as before. To start, we're looking for 2 numbers that add to make the middle coefficient, so 3, and multiply to make 4 multiplied by minus 7, so minus 28. Okay, we need to go on a hunt for the right numbers. This time one's negative and one's positive, because we want to multiply to make a negative number. So let's do our factor V. Factors of 28 should be reasonably straightforward to find. So we've got 1 times 28, 2 times 14, 3's don't go into it, so 4 times 7, 5 and 6 don't go into it. We're looking for a difference of 3 here, because one of our answers has got to be negative, so we're looking for a difference. So that's going to be 4 and 7. So we're going to use those numbers. One of them needs to be negative. So it's going to have to be 7 and minus 4. Because 7 plus minus 4 gives you 3. 7 times minus 4 gives you minus 28. Okay. We've got the right pair of numbers. Grid method. 4x squared goes in the top left. Minus 7 goes in the bottom right. Always that way round. The 7 and the minus 4 doesn't matter which way round, these go in the diagonals. So I'm going to put 7x there, minus 4x there. Now let's think about how we're going to undo this to get our brackets. 4x squared can either be made by multiplying 2x by 2x or 4x by 1x. if it was 2x and 2x, if I put a 2x here, it wouldn't go into the 7. So it can't be that. So it must be 4x and 1x. Well, 4 doesn't go into 7 either, so this must be the single x, and this must be the 4x. 4x times minus 1 gives me minus 4, and x times by 7 gives me 7x. Double check that it's right, you've got minus 1 here, times by 7 gives you minus 7. Yes, it looks to be good. Pop these into the brackets. 4x plus 7, x minus 1. That's the factorised form. Don't forget this time we need to add the equals 0 because we are solving it. Now, the same method as always with solving, we need to set each of these brackets equal to 0 and work out what value of x it is that will work for it. Let's cover up the first one first. So we want x minus 1 to equal 0. So our first solution must be that x equals 1. Our second one is a little more tricky. This time we've got 4x plus 7 equals 0. So this equation needs to be solved for x. Undo the equation as you normally would. Subtract 7 from both sides. So 4x will equal minus 7. Then divide by 4 so that we get x on its own. X equals minus 7 over 4, or minus 1.75. So our two solutions to this quadratic are x equals 1 and x equals minus 7/4. Okay, you should be able to have a good practice now on the questions that I've set for you. Good luck.